So you want to know more about the mud flood? That's good. That's real good. Alright, listen to this. So the mud flood was a catastrophic event that happened roughly 150 years ago, wiping out many civilizations and burying many buildings under mud. Many ancient structures that we see today was once buried. All over the world, you can find these buried structures, and we literally had to dig them out from the mud. And every now and then, we stumbled across sinkholes, uncovering buried buildings. And this is the reason why so many buildings have windows partly buried in the ground. If you notice with this one, the windows get smaller and smaller. And sometimes you see buildings with windows like this. Trust me, that's not a basement. Because if you keep digging, you will see the original front door. Oh my days. So anytime you come across buildings like this, you're dealing with mud flood. Every time we see images of ancient Rome, they look like this. But did you know, at one point, they was completely buried? So the mainstream narrative tells us that after the fall of Rome, all of these buildings just fell into disuse. But that doesn't make no sense. Surely the conquerors would have occupied these buildings. And what I don't understand is, where did all the mud come from? Sounds like a mud flood to me. And we're also told that during this time, people only had swords, bows and arrows. Then why does it look like the buildings have been blasted or blown up? It's one thing to destroy an army, but to destroy their buildings and then bury them? That's a whole nother level of destruction. So if you don't know by now that something's wrong with history, then you're probably still plugged into the Matrix. Mud flooded buildings and the Great Reset. If you still don't know what that is, let me explain. So, sometime in the 1800s, there seemed to have been a worldwide catastrophic event that buried many structures and buildings underneath mud. There's a lot of photographic evidence that shows cities in the 1800s completely devastated. After this last reset that we call the mud flood, settlers move into these muddy abandoned cities and literally have to dig the buildings from out of the mud. This is the same reason why all over the world they keep finding these buried structures. They are literally everywhere, in every city and every town. This is what a typical mud flood building would look like today. Notice those windows peeking through the ground? If you keep digging, you will find the rest of the window. Notice the original front door. Oh my days. This has always been one of my favorites. Look where the front door is. Now look where the front door is after they've dug it up. Absolutely shocking. This is in Seattle, and they only dug this one up to build a car park when they noticed that they was driving on top of buildings. Some people say it's nothing more than a basement, and some people say it's normal to build on top of cities. But I want you just to think for a second. Imagine somebody building a city on top of your city. You would need a lot of mud to pull that off. It's definitely something you don't plan for. You want to see what it looks like inside of a mud flood building? That's good. That's real good. But first, I want to point out that all mud flood buildings have steps that lead up to the front door or steps that lead down. And the reason why is because they've had to make alterations to the building. And they'll always have a date on it, sometime in the 1800s. But if you notice, on the left or right hand side of the door, you have windows. And below, you have bricked out windows. And this is what it looks like on the other side. Oh my days. Damp, dirty, rusty, and old. And this is another part of that same building. And I want you to notice the bricked out windows at the bottom, how they get smaller and smaller until you can't see them no more. And this is what you're dealing with on the other side. These are not basements. It's not the sewage. This was the original lower level. and they clear it out, remove all the mud and all the mess, and salvage what they can. Anytime you come across a building like this, you're dealing with mud flood. When you look into history, all the answers are there. You just gotta be able to decipher them. So when I say I got your ass, oh, I've got your ass. People often ask me, in these mud flood buildings, why don't you ever find any bones? That's because they was removed. So we're talking about catacombs, and I'm gonna need you to read between the lines on this one and use some critical thinking. So they say cemeteries began to be emptied in when? 1786. That's right on time for the last reset. They say it took them over 12 years to move all the bones, numbering between 6 to 7 million. So they say it was due to a public health problem why they had to move the bodies. Now imagine people digging up 7 million decaying bodies with a disease, because remember, that was the reason why they had to move them, and then moving them up to a different location and building a catacomb out of the bones, 5 stories underground. There was no names, no dates, nothing. They like to throw a cross in there to make you think it's about religion, but you can clearly see that cross was put there at a later date. This has nothing to do with religion, and it wasn't just thrown down there randomly. Every bone was put strategically in place. These catacombs are in Paris and they're open to the public, but believe me, under every city there are hidden underground catacombs. Oh, we've got your ass. We've got your ass now. So, construction workers started renovations on a shop in Shelbyville. And guess what they found? The original front door. Oh my days. So check this. They say Shelbyville was founded in 1827. At which point in the mainstream version of history was it covered in mud? So you want to understand more about mud flood? That's good. That's real good. Alright, listen to this. So, this is what you will see when looking for a mud flood building. Stairs that lead up to a front door, which is actually the second floor, and windows that are buried underground. Those windows underground are actually the same length as the windows you see above ground. And here's another mud flood building, and again, steps that lead up to the front door, which is really the second floor, and windows partly buried underground. And again, no surprises here, steps that lead up to a front door and windows partly buried underground. And don't get it twisted, they've converted these into lower level apartments or basements, but if you keep digging down, you will see the original front door. You see, what they like to do is dig out as much of the building as possible from the mud, then convert a window into a door, and you'll always have steps that lead up to the front door or steps that lead down. Anytime you come across a building like this, you're dealing with mud flood. So you want to know about the last reset? That's good. That's real good. Alright, listen to this. So this is how it is. From the 1700s to the 1800s, we went through a reset. History was rewritten. And what that means is names was changed, dates, places, and most importantly, the rulers of this world as we know it changed. Because if you notice, so many countries was founded in the 17 and 1800s. So many monuments and great buildings was founded in the 17 and 1800s. And what they really mean when they use the word founded, it means they found it. Something was already there, and they claimed it for themselves and told their own story of what they saw when they arrived. Imagine that the history of technology is even rewritten. And the reason why they've done this is because they want you to believe in evolution. They want you to think that we've been living for thousands of years and nobody was able to make any type of technology or electricity. They want you to think that the rulers of this world are superior to every other civilization and culture, and they was the only ones that could figure it out. Because if you don't know, there's nothing new under the sun. Anything that you think about doing, it's already been done. And remember, Napoleon said, history is a set of lies agreed upon. Why do you think he said that? He said that because that's exactly what history is. It's his story. It's not our story. It's his story. Let's take a look at a few before and after images of ancient temples. This is the Temple of Inscriptions in Mexico, and when it was rediscovered, it was almost completely buried. This is the Sengamangalan Cave in Indonesia, and I bet if you keep digging, you'll find more of the structure. And this is the Candi Bungsu ruins in Indonesia, and it was just left to grow wild. It makes me wonder, where did all the people go? Same with this temple in Sri Lanka. It was just left and abandoned. And how about this city that was once buried in Peru? We almost missed this one. And one of my favorites, the Angkor Wat Temple in Cambodia. The people, long gone. I don't even think they knew who made this one. And here's another structure in Mexico. And when I look on these ruins, all I see is great resets. And this temple, I believe, is in India, and it appears that they've managed to rebuild it. It's crazy to think how many civilizations have come and gone. This is the Chocolate Hills in the Philippines, and it just may be an ancient buried city. All my days. As you know, I believe under every hill that is shaped like this is a man-made structure. That's why these hills look suspicious to me. The Chocolate Hills have been declared the Philippines' third National Geological Monument, and they call it the Chocolate Hills because of how the grass turns brown in the dry season. But are they hills or are they ancient temples? This is really and truly an exciting time to be living in. We're living in the days of revelation. What was hidden will be revealed. So they have just recently found another ancient city which was buried in mud. That's right, you guessed it. So this city was found in Turkey, and this statue is a statue of the goddess Aphrodite. And they found many other statues and many other structures. It's really crazy right now. When I say I got your ass, oh, I've got your ass. As you know, pyramids can be found all over the world. China, Mexico, Egypt, and so on. But did you know that those pyramids was once buried? I mean, fully buried. All my days. So all these mounds and mountains that they've got people walking up are actually pyramids. I mean, it brings a whole new level to hidden in plain sight. In Australia, they have a race once a year up and down a pyramid, and nobody knows. And it's not just pyramids, it could be colosseums. I believe under every green mountain or hill like this, there is a man-made structure. Mud-flooded buildings and the Great Reset. If you want to find evidence, then go to Glasgow, Scotland. So straight off the bat, you can spot a mud-flooded building when the stairs lead up to the front door or stairs that lead down to the front entrance. This is on Bath Street, and I'm telling you, this is Mudflood City. So the entrance with the steps is not the original ground level. That's the second, third, or sometimes fourth floor. The original ground level is buried underground, and what they do is dig out most of the building, renovate and refurbish and salvage what they can. As you can see, they've dug out as much as they could, and they've turned this one into a shop. These are not cellars, they're not basements, they are mud-flooded buildings. You probably walk past these buildings every day. You can find these buildings all over. but he just didn't know what he was looking at. Anytime you come across a building like this, you're dealing with mud flood. Mud flooded buildings and the Great Reset. If you still don't know what that is, let me show you. Now this is a mud flood building. You have to understand, this building was found, excavated and dug out. That's the reason why some of these windows have been bricked out or turned into air vents. And if you notice, the windows are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's just where somebody hasn't dug out deep enough. This is a mud flood building.